All right, guys, thanks for joining today and appreciate the opportunity to serve. And, this quarter, if you will, so last quarter, we focused on a few carriers. This is a brand new quarter. So if you missed them, feel free to check out the YouTube channel at Valor Financial, where you'll see some trainings from some of our core carriers. So you'll have F&G on there, National Life Group. We do have some Columbus ones, but they did not want to be visible on the YouTube site. So if you want to hear more about Columbus, feel free to let me know. So quarter two has started, and in quarter two, we are going to be talking about from a sales idea today. We'll talk about LIRPs, life insurance retirement plans, but wanted to advise you on a few things. We'll share some carriers this quarter as well. Symetra will be one of them. We'll also talk about North American and another one as well. But what we're going to talk about today are a couple things. So one, we do have the great collaboration coming up in almost a month now. So it's been a long time coming. We have talked about it for about 3 months now ish. But we started planning this in November of last year, and we're finally getting to the finish line here. So we're a little over 30 plus days, and very excited to see everybody there. What I will say is this is that we have, as of right now, probably about 300 people registered, and most of them are local. And we have a set amount of rooms left to book. So I've got about 74 nights to book. And we've had plenty of people book in advance, but the rate is going up on the 12th. So you've got about a week and a half to book before the rates go up. And as a personal favor, I will have to pay the rest of it for those rooms. So if you are part of Valor and you are either coming from out and you're like, oh, well, I can get a room for $160 a night. Well, this is the Gaylord and it's $229 a night. That's actually pretty discounted from what they normally are at. Swanky place. And if you live within the vicinity of Dallas, but from the same token, want to be there on time, we are going to start on time, 8 o'clock in the morning. No standard times from other people that I talk to and joke about. This will be on time starting at 8. So if you feel like you might want to just stay Friday night, register, book a room, so that way you can be there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning. So let's just make sure that if you can, the value proposition is very important for this. I want you guys to understand this too, that you can be a part of a different organization and still come to this event. That seems pretty weird, right? The whole idea of events are typically designed for recruiting. This is not designed for recruiting, it's designed for us to collaborate and grow as like-minded individuals in the financial services industry. We're going to be talking about different things at this collaboration event that surround life insurance. So when we look at the agenda itself, scaling of marketing. That is my marketing team coming in to talk about different ways you can market. When I was a regional vice president, I hated marketing because I was like, oh, everyone will just buy because I'm teaching them the ways to do it. But we got to market. We got to find different ways to get in front of people. And so I've learned a lot from my marketing guys. Fortunately, they're not on this call to hear me grovel and sing to their praises because I would never hear the end of it. But they're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about ways to grow using cash value based life insurance. The breakout sessions, 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, are going to be pivotal when it comes to growing your business by anywhere from 25 to 50% just by coming to hear these. I'm going to be talking about how I secured and helped high net worth individuals secure $100 million in life insurance coverage inside an irrevocable trust that the government will never touch. My business partner, Roderick, is going to be talking about how to integrate and partner with athletes if you want to get into the athlete market. We're gonna talk about diversifying the practice by adding things like um, ACA, Medicare, group life, group health, also alternative real estate investments, how to get fixed contractually double-digit returns in 12 to 18 months and have that money free up so you can invest it elsewhere as well. Keynote speaker, David McKnight, The Power of Zero. And we even have that 3 o'clock spot's going to be adjusted. It won't be agency building mastery. We'll be talking about how to work with business owners, how to partner with a group that I'm bringing to this event that will help you solicit business owners to get them into a course to have them understand ways that they can plan their business as well as an exit strategy and things along the way. And you get these business owners into this course, and from there you basically are being taught, or they're being taught by someone who no longer sells product but a former financial advisor, and then they go back to you as the agents to sell things like buy sell agreements, key person plans, executive bonus, and other things like retirement strategies. So we're going to have a lot of great stuff for you to enhance your practice. I just need you to go to tgcconference.com, register if you haven't, and if you have, and you need to book a room, let me know. You can email me and I can send you the link for that, or it's in the newsletter as well, as I've been sending out every week. So that's just a quick shameless plug because you're here, I'm here, and I want to share that with you. Now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the topic at hand. And what it is a tax diversification conversation. Some of you have seen this before, I'm not going to lie. But what I will say to you is this, is that every time you hear it, you're going to pick up on something different. Even when I presented this as a regional vice president, it wasn't until probably about 3 months in that I could actually talk about it without futzing anything up and making mistakes or reading off the slides. So you learn it, you digest it, and then you're able to repeat it to a customer in your own way. The whole idea is to build a value proposition for yourself. What's that elevator speech that you have ready to give to someone and ultimately drive home that opportunity? Quick update too. I will let you guys know in advance that come July 1st, I'm going to switch from the webinar format to a meeting format. Now, some of you may go, oh my gosh, I don't want other people to see me. But in order for us to continue to grow, we have to build the community. So if you need to change your name to, Johnny Rocket or, Bruce Lee or whatever you want, whatever. But, from this standpoint, we're here to grow a community of like-minded individuals who want to share, who might want to ask a question out loud and have some dialogue. So that is coming. I want you to be aware of it and kind of prepare. So July 1st, in the art of collaboration, the art of growth, that's where we're heading here with Valor. So yeah, let's dive in and how to have a tax diversification conversation. Really, the reason and mission state we think of is why I picked the word valor is it offers great courage in the face of danger. And what we see are always current concerns with market volatility. Real estate, crypto, health, long-term care is a huge one, and even disability. So, our mission is to provide you, so valor to you as the agent, the courage you need to protect your clients in the face of danger with solutions that we have that are utilized, but not often talked about. Not a lot of people talk about LERPs and things like that because it might be taboo to think of it as a vehicle for retirement. So all of these are great concerns. The main two I'll highlight really here is things like investing, so stock market or 401ks. That's one side of the coin. The other thing to concern yourself with is things like health, like long-term care. And what we find is that most people nowadays don't even focus so much on worrying about death Like as you're younger, you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And as you get older, you worry about things like outliving your money. Matter of fact, more people in the United States are worried more about outliving their money than they are dying. So that tells you that as a advisor, you have to focus on the things that get people to move, which is things like retirement planning. So I use this little analogy of, or not analogy, but this multiplication table here. The math adds up first and foremost, but the question is what do the numbers stand for? So 2 stands for 2 people, 3 stands for 3 meals a day, 5 stands for $5 a meal, 7 days a week for 52 weeks in 20 years. So what this is a food plan for an average retired couple. Let's say two 65-year-olds retire, they're going to spend about $220,000 in money on food alone in their retirement per year, or for 20 years. So $220,000. Now, a lot of you might say to yourself, well, $5, where can you find a $5 meal? Heck, Subway doesn't even have $5 footlongs anymore for their delicious rubber chicken. So you have to ask yourself, will this number inflate? Absolutely. But we'll use it as a benchmark right now of $220,000. And then we look at some daunting statistics. So I'm going to focus in the top left first, where we talk about men average an additional 17 years and women 20 years after retirement age. Now, because I can't ask over, a Zoom meeting right now, what I usually tell people is this: when you have men, we don't last as long as women. Why is that? Well, for women, we want to be the gentleman all the way to the end. We want you to enjoy 3 years of peace and quiet without having to worry about us. For men, we just want peace and quiet of our own, so we'll enjoy those 3 years before our spouses enter the other life with us. Jokes, of course. The bigger one is down below the 401k, the big opportunity that people have to retire given to them, blessed to them by their company. Less than $30,000 is socked away from the age demographic of 55 to 64. So do you think we have some type of crisis on our hands? I would say absolutely. Now, we're not targeting 55 to 64 for this sales idea. However, understand that these are the people who are influencing the younger generations. So we have to be smart in how we talk to people about saving. And then the top right, 60% of people are going to retire earlier than anticipated due to things like health related concerns. You see the last two words there, health issues. So, from that standpoint, if someone leaves the workforce early, whether they're taking care of a sick parent or they become sick themselves, that's a concern we have to, manage. And so that's one side of the coin. Then we think about when you talk about outliving your assets, the other side is the healthcare side. So a lot of people don't realize how much healthcare expenses can affect their retirement assets. So we think about certain chronic conditions. What are chronic conditions? You can't perform 2 out of 6 activities of daily living. And then the other thing is critical conditions. So critical being the left, where you have hypertension, high cholesterol, arthritis, diabetes. Things like this can lead to you exiting the workforce early. Chronic conditions, you see 80% have at least one, 68% have at least two. And then the time where you need some type of long-term care or chronic illness is anywhere from 2 years to 4 years, depending on the gender. So once again, women, you live longer, but is it the right quality of care you're looking for? So once again, a lot of people don't realize how these health expenses can accumulate and grow over time. Matter of fact, if you went to a website called Genworth, GENWORTH.com /cost of care, This is the biggest provider of long-term care in the country. They sold the most long-term care. Matter of fact, they sold way too much. They had an anticipation that 10% of people would lapse their contracts. Less than 1% has, which means it's so important that people will pay whatever they need to have long-term care. So Genworth had to sell their book of business, their in-force book of business, to another insurance company, Protective, and they had to sell their term engine to a little known company called Pac Life. That's why you'll see Pac Life Promise PL. That line is the Genworth line or the Genworth engine that they bought. So in order for them to keep the promises for the consumer for long-term care, they had to sell off other parts of their business. That's how important this is. So if you'll see here, on a median for the entire United States, if you needed long-term care today, let's say for 1 year, in a private nursing home, it would cost you $108,000 a year. National average. If you can put in the zip code of where you live, you can find more local averages. But if you're talking to a 50-year-old and you span that out 30 years, say they're using it towards the end of their lives, you're looking at $263,000 a year. So we talk about the average median of long-term care needs. We have a dilemma on our hands. We haven't even talked about the golden years and what they're supposed to be. Everyone talks about the golden years as the time when you have fun, right? You want to go vacation places. You want to see your grandkids. You want to spoil your grandkids. And you want to just enjoy that time with you and your spouse after you finally kick the kids out. But here's the problem. We've already talked about if you even use just 1 year of long-term care at $263,000 and the cost of food at $220,000, that's 500 grand. Do you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, have 500 grand saved up right now? How are you saving for your own retirement? Well, there's three ways that someone can save for retirement. There's a tax now bucket, a tax later bucket, and a tax never bucket. So when we talk about tax now, that would be your CDs, which you can get from a bank, money markets. They don't really grow too much. If you follow Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman, it's always about mutual funds, but they conveniently got rid of their licenses to no longer advise you which mutual funds you can invest in because that would be giving actual true financial advice. The fact of the matter is mutual funds, you're going to pay taxes on every single year from the growth, and you have management fees from the brokerage account and possibly even your advisor. No one likes to talk about that though. Savings accounts, you'll have a nominal interest gain there. Tax later, though, is where a majority of the money goes. Matter of fact, 90 to 95% of people will put their money in 401ks and traditional IRAs. Now, I'll be honest, I had money in a 401k. Why? Because my dad told me to put it there when I was a kid. Why? Because he grew up in a time where pensions were going away and 401ks were replacing them. 401ks were less of an obligation for a company for a long-term approach to take care of their employees or basically take less onus on them to supply them with retirement. Both my grandfathers retired from Kodak up in Rochester, New York, 40 years of service, and they had their own pension plans. Now, those pension plans, unfortunately, I mean, they passed away, but fortunately for them, they didn't have to deal with the fact that the pensions started to remove or eliminate some healthcare benefits because corporations don't like leaving long-term debts on the balance sheet, and a pension is exactly that. So they shifted to 401ks. So the onus is on the employee to put money away for retirement. Now, if we think back to about around the time 401ks started to develop, That was around the same time you had a top marginal tax bracket 70, 80, 90%. And clients, if you were high net worth earners, say making over 400K, every dollar or every $10 you got, nine of which went to the government, unless you found a way to reduce your tax bracket. So the idea of this was to reduce your tax bracket. The whole idea behind all of this is tax deductible contributions. So you pay Uncle Sam less now, and then down the road, when you get to retirement, the idea is that the taxes will be reduced. So you're not taking out as much or receiving as much, so you don't pay as much in taxes. That's that tax deferred growth part. But the problem is that if you look up, you can go to US Debt Clock, DEBT, debtclock.org, and you can see we have over $34 trillion in debt as an economy. So, how does the government get rid of debt? They have to raise taxes at some point. And so we just have to figure out who has to take a bite of that apple. And when you raise taxes, you're raising them. Right now, we're at a top marginal tax bracket of about 38, 39%. And that's a historic low. 37 to 39 has been very low for top marginal tax brackets. So as those go up, that includes those bottom classes will have higher taxes as well. And now you're going to have to pay taxes on the harvest and not the seed in which you invested in. So as taxes go up, even though you're investing in tax deferred growth to kind of get your taxes down now, the idea of tax deductible, tax deferred growth for less income taxes later has been reversed. And now you're going to pay more taxes in your own retirement. So, Mr. and Mrs. Client, wouldn't it make sense to reposition a portion of your assets? We have a tax never bucket, which could be Roth IRAs if you can get in that tax bracket. If you start to make too much, you will no longer be able to invest in a Roth IRA, and cash value life insurance. So those are your two tax never buckets that we'll focus on, neither of which have tax deductible contributions. The IRS limit on contributions due to income is removed when you talk about cash value life insurance. So as I mentioned, if you hit a certain adjustable gross income per year as you know, filing joint with your spouse or by yourself, then you would no longer be able to make contributions to your Roth. So that's where the cash value life insurance has a leg up. They both have tax deferred growth. You actually have to wait till 59 and a half to pull out money from a Roth without getting hit with the 10% penalty. And so you don't have to worry about that with cash value life insurance. Also, if I were to invest, say 7,000 today or whatever the maximum is for a Roth, and the max or match it with cash value life insurance. If I died today after investing, my wife would get $7,000, give or take the interest. But if we did it with the life insurance, she would get a tax-free death benefit, so she could enjoy the retirement she deserves rather than the one I just gave her. And so it's what we call a self-completing policy. It protects you while you work and rewards you while you retire. The other thing too is you can catch up on missed contributions. You can't do that with 401ks. You can't do that with IRAs. You can't do that with Roths. You can do that with cash value life insurance. If you are a business owner and you had a bad year last year and you put, say, $20,000 into your 401k the year before, then you could only put like 5,000 in. So you had a gap of 15K. The following year, you have a really great year. You can't put in the 15K from before plus the 20 from this year. You can't do that. You can do that with the cash value life insurance. So there are very unique value pieces to cash value life insurance that you can do that a Roth can't even do. Not to mention the contributions are much higher. It's based upon what you as a consumer want to put into this as opposed to a limit that you'd have from a 401k or an IRA. I have a client who's doing about $100,000 a year for 10 years into his cash value life insurance policy for retirement at age 55 versus 65. So how do we talk about this with consumers? What is the easy way to have a conversation? Well, the idea here is it can be so easy you can do it on a napkin. You have the 5, 10, 20 story of contribution, accumulation, distribution. So if you today put on a napkin 5, 10, 20 and said, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we're going to talk about a contribution, accumulation, and distribution phase of retirement. Let's say, for example's sake, you put in $5 into a retirement vehicle. Now, over time, it's going to grow to $10 due to compounding interest and growth. Now, you're not going to take all $10 out at retirement. You're going to take it out over a 20-year period. So that $10 stretches because it's still going to grow as you pull money out, but it stretches to $20. So you contributed 5, it grew to 10, and now you have $20 worth of money that you've pulled out or distributed. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, in this scenario, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The bad news is you actually have to pay taxes on one of these three. But here's the good news. You actually get to choose. So this is where you'd slide the piece of paper over to the consumer and ask them to circle which one they want to pay taxes on during retirement. 99.9% of people will say $5. If they say 20, re-explain it, or if they still say 20, just walk out. It's not worth your time. But this bodes a question. If they want to be taxed on $5, ask them the next question. Where are the bulk of your retirement assets currently invested? 401ks, IRAs? Oh, well, in that scenario, which one of these numbers is going to get taxed? And then at that point, they're going to realize it's the $20. So that's kind of that aha moment for the consumer to understand that they're going to pay taxes on the bigger number. So this is where you come in with the value proposition of, wouldn't it make sense to diversify a portion, not all, but a portion of your portfolio? So there's the question. Now here's the value proposition to go along with that question. If you had access to a retirement strategy that provides you with tax treatment that you want, that $5, and you could put in as much as you want, how much would you put into a plan like that every single year for, let's say, 10 years, 20 years? Or how long do you think you'd be comfortable in investing in that type of strategy? So I'm going to ask you guys on the screen, where do you see me asking them to put money into a life insurance policy? Where do you see premium amounts? The wording is not there, but the retirement strategy, much like an IRA, much like a 401k, a life insurance policy is a chassis or a vehicle where you can invest assets to help you get a return. It's just thought of differently compared to the other ones. And how much could you put into an asset like that? You could even say an asset class, something along those lines. How much would you put into that every single year? What you're asking for is how much can they invest in that product? What's their premium commitment? And then from there, you work backwards and figure out exactly what they need to do a LIRP, life insurance retirement plan. Some people call it SERP, S-E-R-P, Supplemental Executive Retirement Plan. So you can call it what you want. I've heard people call it a 7702 plan. I've heard people call it infinite banking. I mean, all of this stuff is roughly the same, just a different wrapper. It's cash value life insurance. So along with that, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're getting additional benefits. We kind of already explained some of those benefits. Self-completing at owner's death. You have no set limit on contributions. You can access before 59 and a half with no penalties. You can catch up on those contributions. R&D is not a huge issue, depending on who you're talking to, or R&Ds for beneficiaries, but upside potential with no downside market risk. So that is the IUL strategy. You could even say the same thing for whole life. They're both upside potential, no downside risk. So if we move forward, though, and we talk about a case study, for those of you who are football fans, I obviously am a big Ravens fan. So homage to Mr. Ray Lewis. He is now a motivational speaker, a 40-year-old motivational speaker. Annual income about 400K, and targeted retirement about 65. So that's why he's waiting for his full Social Security benefits. Which, if you are 40, you probably aren't going to get Social Security benefits. So another reason why you need to save now. Well, in order for you to have a fighting chance of retirement, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you need to put away at least 10% of your W-2 income, which would be 40,000. So he's going to put 20,000 into his 401k so he can get some tax later money. And then we have $20,000 that we can review in order to find where we can put this. Well, I know where to put it. Life insurance. So we talk about a minimum death benefit. We're not looking for the highest death benefit, but the least amount. Assuming preferred non-tobacco, you're going to fund for about 15 years at an increasing death benefit option. Why? Because you can stuff more money into less of a death benefit, giving your customer more cash growth with less fees. Once you're done funding, you switch it to a level policy or option A, and that reduces the cost of insurance. Now, the illustration rate varies. Now, the beauty of where we are today is we have flexibility, choice, and options. And so every carrier is going to run a different number for you. We're going to pay premiums. Okay, I actually ran this to 65, so we're doing it for 25 years. And then we're going to take income out for 25 years as well, starting at 66. So if we look at carrier A, B, C, and D, these are great carriers. They have different rate of returns. Now, the numbers are a little old, so I'm going to ask for forgiveness on this because rate of returns could have reduced depending on the carrier. But let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story, right? So carrier A, B, C, and D all have their own different value propositions, all have different illustration rates. Obviously, with a 7.04 rate of return, 3.2 million in total income, that second column to the far right, total income received is a pretty extensive number. And you'll see as the agent, the average target premium for a death benefit around 350,000. Now, if you're running multi-carrier, which obviously I can help you with, but if you're running multi-carrier and see everyone around 350 and then someone at like 700,000, you did that one wrong. Most of them are going to be around the same wheelhouse, just to be completely honest. But from the standpoint of investing $20,000 a year for 25 years and getting tax-free income that ranges between 104,000 up to $146,000, that's still a lot of tax-free money that they can enjoy. Now let's shave it down a bit because I like to manage expectations at roughly around a 6% return, 6.5, 5.5, somewhere in that range. But if you'll notice here, you're still at about $100,000 up to $118,000. You'll see that there was a dramatic drop once you drop 91 basis points on carrier C. So when you talk about looking at numbers as the specialist on the back end, understanding the cost of the insurance from the carrier, as well as the index strategies is crucial because illustrations prove one thing: ink sticks to paper. So you just always want to make sure that you understand exactly what you're selling and have a good understanding because the start of your relationship with the client is not the first hello. It's when they sign that document saying they're going to take the policy. That's your true marriage to your client. Everything else is just dating. So from that standpoint, we think about what we're talking about here is Mr. Ray Lewis has invested $20,000 a year for 25 years. That money has increased over time to 1.3 million. And then during the distribution phases, he's pulling out about $146,000 a year for 25 years, or $3.65 million in tax-free income. So the question I would always go to the client is, do you think that Ray is happy he paid tax on the initial 500,000 and not the 3.65 million? I'd like to think so. And we think about it, maximum funded life insurance may be the only way to help you achieve and supplement to these goals. Now, we talked about the retirement piece, building that up. A lot of these carriers will also have a long-term care rider, chronic illness rider, or ADRs built into the products that if you need it, there's something there to help you with that long-term care side too. So we like to couple the options together if we can. Also, depending on the age of the client, that's important to make sure all of this works correctly. For these LERP concepts, you're looking between 20s all the way up to about 55, but understand compounding and how it works. If you're younger, you have a longer time where you can invest. If you're older, you have less time to invest to get you to retirement, so you need to put more in to get something worth it because there are costs of insurance to this. Now, where could we target certain people for this type of strategy? You want to look at a few different places. The upper echelon, as always, doctors, dentists, attorneys, and CPAs. So, doctors and dentists have very unique value propositions. They make a lot of money, but they also have a lot of responsibility, and sometimes it can be very taxing. So, doctors and dentists, they might have a shorter horizon where they want to get to before they retire. So, they might want to retire at 50. But they also have a situation where you need to talk about things like disability insurance, which we'll talk about in Q3, long-term care and disability. So things like that, that's an additional piece to the puzzle of how you can add revenue to your practice by offering different products, which you can do here. Attorneys and CPAs, not only can they afford stuff like this, but they're also great centers of influence. They might not want to do what you want to do. They might not want to sell insurance, but if they have referral opportunities, Mr. and Mrs. CPA, I work with a lot of clients that need your services. If I come across them, can I recommend you? In the meantime, can you recommend me to your top clients for services that we just talked about today? Symbiotic relationship, collaboration, if you will, to coin the great collaboration. That's some people you want in your inner circle. Next tier, not to say that they're any better or any worse, but just not often talked about compared to the top four. Chiropractors make a pretty decent salary. Veterinarians, I honestly think veterinarians are a missed opportunity because they have to do the same things that doctors have to do, but to animals. I mean, that's pretty intense to say the least. So veterinarians, funeral home directors, you talk about successful business owners. So how many of you have talked to business owners about a tax-free strategy or a tax never strategy to help them retire the way they want, or maybe even retain some key employees? So if I have a key employee that I want to give a bonus plan to, then I can provide that as well and get a tax write-off. So we could talk more about that as how we can work with successful business owners. Talk about high income executives. And high income executives, you could talk about anybody on this call, I'd say, is a successful business owner or maybe even a high income executive that should explore this opportunity. And if you need help, you know where to find it. But lastly, at home spouses. So this is really interesting because when I worked corporate, my wife was a homemaker. And so in that unique scenario, I brought home the bacon, but she did more of the heavy lifting. She took care of the kids. While I went off and wined and dined people, she would be at home doing everything. I don't even know the doctor's names, the dentist names. She does, and she would know that I've admit this several times. I can't do what I do without her. So when you think about it, the interesting thing about at-home spouses is if you have a solid foundation in marriage, and you want to say bring home the 401k, provide him or her with the alert plan. So you each have a tax later and a tax never bucket that you can provide from. So there's different ways that you can partner with at-home spouses to, one, increase the value proposition for them, because my wife didn't feel appreciated until we did something like this for her too, because she's like, you're getting all the money, and it's not. It was, we always had these conversations until we balanced it out. So at-home spouse is always a fun one. So what I like to say is that when you think about who you can work with, why we pick Valor Financial, once again, I'm always available. You can text, you can call, you can email me, carrier pigeon, whatever you want. But it's your vision and our expertise. What can we do to help you build your services to your community? How can you grow your community? Different ways that we can do that. We talked about tax-free retirement strategies today, but we'll talk about more of this stuff as well as time goes on. Here's some examples of where we won. So some success stories using multiple carriers instead of just one or two. Financials. So I worked with an agent who worked at a different company, three-letter company that they found was very limited. And they got declinations on two parents and a son and his wife. And the reason why was lack of financials. Now, for those who deal with the certain clientele who are not rich on paper but have a lot of money and still need a lot of coverage, we went with a carrier that had better favorable financial opportunity, and were able to provide the agent with all the coverage that they needed, as well as a $356,000 commission. So he made a third of $1 million on four people, and that has led to referrals for him for other people in that same community. Diabetics, you got people who have a touch of the sugar. With people who have a touch of the sugar, we got carriers. 56-year-old client gives an 8.0 A1C. Sleep apnea, cardiac concerns, we were able to get them a standard non-tobacco for $3 million of coverage. And a 50-year-old with a 7.1 A1C. Father even passed away before age 60 due to a heart attack, and we got $10 million of coverage secured as preferred non-tobacco. So when you think about all these things, not every carrier is going to offer you the same solution. What carrier I would fit would not be the same carrier that most of the people on this call would fit, because I would need someone who's a little bit more liberal for weight. So when we think about what we do, when we talk about our clients, and a lot of times they might be saying, well, I talked to a New York Life guy, they showed me New York Life. I talked to a Northwestern guy, he gave me Northwestern. Talking to you, which carrier do you represent? I like to say I represent a surplus of 30 plus carriers, and think of them all like artists. Okay, all of them will paint a different picture of you. You just have to figure out which one you want best to be hung up on your mantle. And that's the important thing to remember, is we want to be unbiased with the approach and the opportunity we lead to our carriers. Now I have a core 5, core 6 carriers that I work with because they can fit a lot of these, but just make no mistake about it, there's the ability to shop the carriers when we need to, all of them, just to make sure that your clients walk away with something. Keep in mind that we host these opportunities to help you be successful every week, every Thursday, 4 o'clock Central. If you think that you need some catered service, if you're an agency owner and you want more service for your team, we can set up timelines. We can set up different nights or days. Because I work with people who do this all day, every day as their primary. I work with people who do this part-time. Does not matter. But signing up is free. Getting carriers under our licensing part is free. There are no commitments. We're just a handshake kind of company to help you grow your practice independent, and you own it. So that's the big thing. Once again, this was the tax diversification conversation. I will share with you too, to just kind of bring the message home. The opportunity that we have coming up, please, please, please see if you can make it for May 11th with a great collaboration. Because once again, the resources that I have, my business partner Roger has, my marketing team Nathan has, David McKnight, who's a critically acclaimed author on the power of zero. You don't want to miss it. And please, if you're going to grab a room, which would be very appreciative, I need you to do it before next Friday, the 12th. So with that, I'll answer some questions I see here. Someone asked, can you send us these slides? The answer is yes. What I would say is, from that standpoint, if you want me to send the slides, I'm going to put my easier email address in for quicker communication opportunity. Phil at ValorFS. So as you can see, ValorFS.com. and say, hey, I want those slides. Now it might be too big to send via email. I think it's like a 13 meg deck, but you just say, yeah, I can send it to you so you have it. So just email me if you want the slides, and I can send them your way. No problem. All right. So, question: when the client divorces, does the cash value of the life insurance is taken into consideration during the divorce settlement? Typically, it's not the first thing people look at. I'm going to be 100% honest. Can they go after it? Maybe, because they might force you to liquidate it and take the cash from it. But most of the time, that is a very, very personal thing. And so people will look at 401ks, they'll look at physical property before they look at anything like the life insurance. So I would say you want to talk to a tax consultant or a lawyer, if you will, for the best advice. But I've heard mixed responses from that. Life insurance is usually the last thing people will go for. They might tell you to switch the beneficiaries or switch the ownership, things like that. But needless to say, is it's usually the last thing that people look at. I know it's not a clear answer, more of a political answer, but that's the best I got without having a JD. So, question: do annuities do the same thing without the riders or death benefit? The answer is no. The annuities do part of what we're looking at here. If you want guarantees, annuities are a fantastic vehicle to do that with. Why? Because they can give you a streamlined, guaranteed approach. Now, this gives you tax-free income. You are not going to pay taxes if, once again, this is structured properly. With annuities, you put in either pre-tax money like 401k rollovers, IRA rollovers, which is a great way to get annuities. Or if someone is just putting in cash, let's say it's $100,000 and they want to grow, say it grows to 300,000. Well, if they start taking out incremental money, say, $10,000 a month, well, all of that's going to be taxable until they get to that principal that they put into the policy. In this wrapper, if you will, of it being in a life insurance policy, because what you're doing, the strategy involves is you're basically borrowing the carrier's tax-free money, and they put your money set aside as collateral. If you surrendered the whole contract, then it'd be realized gains and you'd pay taxes. But if done properly, everything is you're borrowing tax-free money from the insurance company, and then at death, your tax-free death benefit pays off that loan, and then the remainder goes to your beneficiaries tax-free. So that's why it's a strategy or a play to help keep more money in the pockets of the consumer as opposed to Uncle Sam, if once again done right. But if you want to diversify the portfolio, you're talking to someone who is closer to retirement. Maybe they did one of these and they also have a 401k. They separate from service. You can reposition that to an annuity. Now you have tax later money, but guaranteed, and tax never money. And it just depends on how much they want to take out. So if you say to someone in your elevator pitch, yeah, I can give you for retirement planning tax never money or tax free money, or I can give you guaranteed money, but will be taxed. So you can position it any way you want. I highly encourage you to have like a 2 to 3 minute value proposition of your own to help you with your clientele. But hopefully that answers that question on the difference between life insurance and annuities from that standpoint. I think next week or the week after, I'm going to do one on understanding annuities. So kind of falling in with the retirement theme. So that is coming up. Yeah, annuities do have guarantees with principal protection. So does life insurance per se. But with annuities, you can have annuities that have no fees. So you have principal protection from that standpoint and guaranteed income. Uh, but if you have the guaranteed income, like a rider built in, there's a fee to that. So there's accumulation annuities that have no fees. Life insurance, there's fees. You have to assume that in the first 5 to 10 years, you will have less in it than you've invested in it. Okay. So the client or the consumer has to understand that the way it works is you have to build it, you have to nurture it almost like a baby. You know, if any of you have had kids, it takes a while for them to have that reciprocal love, so to speak. And so you're fostering and growing this policy, you're giving it more than it's giving you. But in the end, after about 5 to 10 years, mostly 10 years, the fees drop off immensely in the insurance policies and the cash skyrockets. So explaining to your clients in advance with these type of strategies too, they're not going to see a massive return like you would see in a stock market going up 48% in 1 year and then they can pull it all out. It's a long-term strategy. You want at least 10 to 20 years for it to grow. Okay. So that is a big thing that we also have to mention when we plan and practice for retirement planning. The strategy in this is long term, it's not short term. So if you have someone who is looking at a 5 year window, we can have different conversations about that. So that is a completely separate topic. It's actually 3 weeks ago, I talked about it, alternative lending. We have a story for that too. So a lot of different ways we can serve our clients here at Valor. And just wanted to make sure that everybody, we're all on the same page. To reiterate, for those who came on a little late, we are going to go to a meeting, webinar format in July. So the beginning of July, all gloves are off. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to actually ask a question for other people to engage and really have more of a bonding conversation versus me lecturing for 45 minutes, or in this case 54 minutes. Woo. So want to say thank you guys for the questions. I don't see any other questions popping up, so I'll give that 2 seconds. tgcconference.com, log in, register. Want to see you in May in Dallas, and say thank you again for the time today. See you next Thursday, and have a great weekend. All right.